Hello, everyone. Welcome into this episode of the podcast everyone's talking about, The Talking Tree. I am your host, the Singing Tree, or Ro, and today we are joined by two very special guests. With us here today is Sunflower Boop and Marigold Rose. Both are accomplished video game streamers on the Twitch platform, and they are joining me for today's Tree Talk. Now, Sunflower, Marigold, how are y'all today, and are you ready for the question?
Yeah, I'm doing really well and I'm super excited.
Yeah, I'm doing great too. I'm can't wait to hear what you have in store for us.
Wonderful. So today's tree talking point is this. Have you ever gotten stuck in a loop, in the same routine, day after day, doing the same activities, like you're stuck? What was your loop? Describe it, and how or if you've broken out of the cycle. Sunflower, we'll start with you after this quick ad break. Marigold, you have a bit more time to think of your answer. And viewers, remember to follow the links in the show notes to my and our special guest social medias and tweet us your answer to today's Tree Talk. The Talking Tree will be right back. Now, from a quick word for our sponsors. This podcast is sponsored by Terry Red Herring, whose new EP called Forbidden finally has a release date. Some of the amazing hit tunes included on this record are When I Was Happy, Laughing Through the Pain, Stuck in a Routine, Immaculate, I Don't Miss You Anymore, Blueberries, and Hourglass. On July 21st at 9 p.m. PST, you can listen to it on Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you listen to music. This album is incredible and has so much heart and soul in it, I know you'll love it. Now, back to the Talking Tree. All right, Sunflower, now what is your loop, and have you gotten out of it? How?
Um, my loop is actually it's an interesting point because my loop is actually, I believe, my whole life. In some ways I feel like I keep repeating similar mistakes. And a couple years ago I kind of put my head to it as my dad said to me, when does it stop hurting when you keep bashing your head against the wall? And I said, well, when you pass out. And he said, no, when you stop. Um And for a long time, I was kind of living bashing my head into the wall, trying to figure out what I was doing wrong, like why I kept coming up short in certain places, why I couldn't be able to focus. And finally, I gave up and I went crying to my friends, and they said, "Go to the doctor. They will have the answers for you." And so I did, and I went to the doctor, and they said, "You have ADHD." And finally, things made sense. And I'm not saying that I'm out of my loop. I'm still definitely in it. I'm still figuring things out. I opted to stay off medication, so that didn't change anything. It's just now it's about making the world fit to me instead of me fitting to the world. And something about that is incredibly, I don't know, like it's loop changing. It's still a loop, but it's no longer about bashing my head into the wall. It's about fitting the pieces into where they need to go. So, yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much for your very well thought out answer, and I'm proud of you for working on changing that cycle. I know it's not an easy task, and it really shows how strong you are. I really admire that. Marigold, what about you? What's your loop, and have you gotten out of it? How?
I was waking up, going to classes, eating with friends, my roommates, and then it was homework and sleep. And it was that day after day after day, no variation, and kind of slowly and steadily driving myself into realizing, oh, this isn't what I want. But I was able to come home. I had a break, and I realized for the next couple months going forward, I'm not just going to be dictated by school. And I started going out and meeting people, joining clubs, and I found this really awesome theater group where I could foster my love for acting and doing all of that, and really just found where I could belong. And I got out of that cycle. And yeah, I mean, it's still like waking up and going to classes, but I have something to look forward to, like at the end of the day, and getting myself out of my dorm room and not allowing myself to just sit at my desk and do work.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your answer, and I'm so happy that you were able to escape your cycle. Now, what is my loop? What cycle have I been stuck in, and how did I get out of it? Well, I feel like I get stuck in loops once every couple of months. It's sort of just an ebb and flow of getting too comfortable in my routine and realizing that it doesn't really fulfill me anymore. So, this loop in particular was last spring semester of college during midterms. This was my second year of college, and it was a faster, like exponentially increasing cycle. I was finally off of my medication, and this was a really good thing. They were antidepressants, so they were essentially mood stabilizers, which meant you didn't feel super sad anymore, but you also didn't feel super happy. And eventually, that was starting to really take a toll on me. I felt like I was just kind of a robot living day to day. But with this newfound sort of crazy ride of emotions, I was losing my ability to keep up with schoolwork. And I felt like I was kind of treading water with just my chin above. I had trouble with like half of my classes at this point, and I was severely struggling keeping up with them. And not so much that like the material was hard, but that it was just a lot to do in such a short time period that I was expected to complete. And I was passing, but basically only by the good graces of my professors. Um, so my breaking point, I guess, happened in chemistry lab when we were instructed to finish all of the lab work, do our calculations, check them in a computer program, and then organize all of that into a report. And I was already so nervous about that once they had told us that that's what we were going to end up doing. And I eventually got through all my lab work, but I've always been more of a measure twice, do once kind of person. So by the time that I'd finished, I checked the clock and realized there was literally no way that I was going to be able to get all of my work finished. And I started to feel super hot, and I could feel all the blood rushing to my face, and I was so embarrassed and overwhelmed, and class hadn't even ended yet. But I just froze. Like brain had a meltdown, complete like freeze. I couldn't concentrate, couldn't keep writing, couldn't do anything. I just kind of sat there and stared at my work. And for the first time, I feel like in my adult life, I felt like I was like actually going to like break down in front of a room full of people. And I mean full of people. My college is big. And I've always been really good at keeping my emotions in check. Not like being like well behaved or anything like that, but I'd never really had loud outbursts. I was always pretty calm and a little antisocial. But in that moment, it felt like all of a sudden I was just like not in control, and everything was so intense, and I was expected to do so much in such a short amount of time, and I just couldn't. And I stopped. Um, and then I walked home afterwards. I got an extension for just 10% off my grade, which, but eventually I decided to kind of talk to a doctor about it. And he asked if I had ever considered autism. And that kind of made everything fit into place. But instead of like a break away from a loop or cycle, whatever, it kind of felt like a Lego clicking into place finally. Um, and I finally kind of understood how I could work with it instead of fighting against it this entire time. And yeah, that was my loop. Well, thank you so much to Sunflower Boop and Marigold Rose for being here today for today's Tree Talking Point, and thank you to viewers like you for supporting the Talking Tree and allowing me to have amazing guests like these on our shows. And thank you again to our sponsor for today, Terry Red Herring. And please check out the new EP called Forbidden on July 21st at 9 p.m.
It's been a hot minute since I started burning pages. Always try to be courageous while I'm going through the changes. I've been making some excuses, trying on some different faces. 2020, what the deuces? Judy put me in a stasis.